to building the new web. So I'm Henrik, I'm the CEO of ChromaWay, and we have a product called Chromapolis that I'm going to talk about, and how that model is different from some other blockchains in terms of programming. So we call the concept relational blockchain. So this is basically, again, I will talk about centralized application and the use cases, etc., and then a little bit more on the technology, and then do a demo. How many are coders here or tech savvy enough? Good. You will see a terminal window. So this is actually on my first trip in this industry to New York, 2014. I took this picture in Brooklyn. So we were doing some business travel. That's me and my co-founder, or is in the audience, I'm not sure. Ah, he's not. Well, he's sleeping in the banquet, always on his microphone, and Ido is our fourth co-founder, but he wanted to focus more on his research. So now we have three. But it wasn't like as glamorous as it is now, a lot of money in the business, the bank beds back in 2014. We had some good times as well, so we're in this lobster dinner with some crypto profiles. Charlie Shrem and Vitalik is on the picture. So it's kind of, and we, of course. So those three can represent different parts of crypto. So Vitalik started Ethereum. He had started, basically the product some months before this. So he was basically a rich guy already here. So you get a lot of attention in this public blockchain space. It was really something that started to grow here. Charlie Shrem can represent Bitcoin and its use as a payment mechanism. And back at that time, we thought that we should pay for coffee with Bitcoin and stuff like that. But what happened is that he went into jail for something with illegal money soliciting. And we suffered an even worse thing. We started to work with banks. So, slow industry. But we started with something we thought was like groundbreaking. We did a stable coin. We got a bank back in 2014. There wasn't even a hyperledger or anything. So we started to work on that, and then we wanted, this is really something. Blockchain is interesting to people. But the problem was that we didn't get much other customers after this bank. I mean, it was actually quite cool. Peer-to-peer payment system intended for Estonia. This is the second one on the Color Coins project, because that was where we come from. Our CTO Alex, he came up with this way to issue tokens on Bitcoin in 2012, basically the first blockchain project. So that's where we started up. But then, sort of after this, the customers ran out. So we started to do more, look at what kind of technologies do people want in enterprises. And we stumbled upon a case with the Swedish land registry to do smart contracts for buying and selling real estate. So that gave us a lot of attention, and sometimes we were even like a top 10 real estate startups, but not feeling like a real estate startup at all. So we developed this technology then, relational blockchain, a combination between a relational database and a blockchain, because we had suffered some issues with doing these applications. For example, to index everything and search for information. How much does this person actually owe to that person? It's not really efficient to go through a linked list of transactions every time and sum up things. So we wanted an index in a database, of course, so we can search that information directly. Then sort of came up with the idea, maybe we can have this model not only store information, but actually have the consensus integrated with the database. So we did this as a private blockchain intended for enterprises. Of course, Postchain is the name of that kind of private blockchain. We thought that there are millions of SQL developers and they use all these tools, so we thought that could be very attractive. It's basically, you can code an implementation in SQL, and a lot of people know SQL, and it's really, really simple way to do blockchain implementations rather than learn Go or anything, and you know the architecture. But then, in December 2017, Alex came up with the idea whether we can take this enterprise blockchain and add some layers and make it into a public blockchain. And by then we were sort of a little bit bored with the slow progress on the enterprise space. So we thought that would be a really great thing. So we came up with Chromapolis. It's a new public blockchain platform that we've been working on for, based on our previous private blockchain, but we've been working basically for a year now. And what kind of applications are we looking at here? We all hear about Google and Facebook and Twitter, etc. And everyone is annoyed with their centralized control over our data. And we think that it's kind of hard to build a Facebook on a linked list of transactions. But with this kind of technology, a relational database, that's basically what they started off with, the MySQL database. So now I can actually make it possible to do these applications that this industry is talking about, these disruptive things. You actually need the tools to do that. So that's what we're striving for. And what are the problems? Lack of choices, because you optimize for the general public, and not for particular people's interests. And we, as consumers, don't know about the information on the backside. Privacy violations, we've heard about that. Censorship, the Twitter stories, for example, and so on. So, of course, and then the question is, should we in our industry actually be monopolists or not? Or should we have an open infrastructure that is not intended to be a single monopoly in control of everything? So this kind of maybe it's a good thing that the VC industry is not that controlling of our industry anymore. So what kind of alternatives do we have? It all leads down to blockchain, of course. You could do crowdfunding, but they have no control over what's happening actually. You just invest. Open source is, and free software. That's a fantastic thing, but it really only works on your computer. Like once you have something that's running on a server, you have no control of what's happening anyway. So it's kind of problematic. There's been projects trying to make your own servers and so on, but hasn't really catched on. So I think that this could be a great opportunity for our industry to improve on this. And blockchain has been good, but it doesn't really scale enough to do very big applications. So we have this ID, not we only we, but we call it like publicly hosted applications. So the users, i.e. the public, should be in control over how the service works. To some extent, this can be to different levels. So, and they should also be in control of how the service is operated. And, we can remove the risk of discontinuation, etc. We can make applications that can run forever, controlled by users. But it's also up to the DApp developer. You can also do dictatorship on our model, but we have the tools to make really open applications or public applications. So it kind of works for ordinary users using the blockchain. With phones, we have power users that can basically have read-only nodes to inspect things. But contrary to Bitcoin and Ethereum, the applications are run on professional providers, so on good hardware in data centers run by organizations. So you can call it almost like a decentralized cloud that's hardened. Because right now, if you put something on cloud, you're in control of a single organization. If you put it on our cloud, there's several organizations that are running our application. And if you don't believe in a world conspiracy, it's very unlikely that you'll be in complete control over your application. So I can come back to the PBFT and voting and how that works. But we have service providers that you pay to run your application. Yeah, and you should be able to verify what's happening, of course. That's important. We also have a marketplace of providers. Maybe you don't want to have providers from a particular country, or for different reasons. It should be you as an application developer that decides where your application should be running. So what kind of applications you can make? You can make a Twitter clone. Twitter is controlled by a single organization, which is a US entity, so controlled by US morals or whatever you want. And they can censor, prioritize, ban, etc. And they prefer you to run their own clients. And this is something that even the politicians are using across the world. It's kind of surprising in a way. So what we can do is you can crowdfund this maybe. You put in money, pay into some tokens that are funding development, and then you can host it on a platform that is completely decentralized, but still controlled by the users. So that's something you can build. This is an enterprise application that we did as a private blockchain. It's about green investments and bonds. So basically have some tracking of what happens when you invest in a bond. Someone is guaranteeing that it has good environmental impacts, but you don't know exactly when, who is reporting when, etc. So we had this blockchain where you can have different participants. Maybe you measure energy with IoT devices. Maybe you look at satellite photo over solar panel plants. And maybe you have auditing companies providing PDF reports, checking these claims. So we're running this, but when we talk with the banks and asset issuing companies, etc., no one is really super interested to run a node in a private blockchain. They just want to use this, to have it as a service. And this has actually been perfect for a public application. But currently, it hasn't even been considered because of the control issues and the performance issues on Ethereum and Bitcoin. So this is something that we can post as a public application. And it can also have the governance encoded in this, in some kind of mini democracy that provides voting on how the application will be governed and updated in the future. So this is a lot about the public, so I'm going to change the logotype now. This is actually world premiere, actually pre-premiere of a new branding. So we'll change the name of Chromapolis to Chromia, and I will do some symbolic striptease to show the logotype, which I will not continue with anything, but this is like a dad joke of presentations. So, power to the public, that's what it's about.
Right on.
Yeah. So, what can you do? We have the case around games. I think it was Vitalik that he had some sword that they changed the characteristics of in an online game. So that's something you could actually have, not talking about NFTs and owning assets, but all the complete logic in a blockchain. So maybe you say to your players, I, as an application developer, will not be able to change the game rules unless you approve them with a majority vote or with your political parties inside our little game. You can also make sure that no one can steal your assets, of course. So you can have a really long longevity. And as the market share drops, maybe it's impossible for you to turn it down because the players can pinch in money and continue the operations. So you can really make applications that have a long longevity. Social media we talked about, and talked a little about the public applications. So that's a double slide. And relational database, relational blockchain. If you can answer these two survey questions, then in repetition, I will say that A and A is that relational blockchain is a great thing. So that's what it's about. This is kind of a text-led slide, but it's kind of important how it works. So it is as open as other blockchains, we think, even though you run it on a fewer number of nodes. At least you know who are behind which companies are behind the nodes, where are they situated, and you can make your own judgment. Are these operators, these cloud companies, in a big conspiracy against you? With the public blockchains, proof of stake or proof of work, you don't really know who's behind. It can be one single company in China or other company that is controlling it. And we have this discussion about mining power centralization, but it's also problematic with proof of stake. The richest controls the network, and how does it work? So this is we believe that we have as much decentralization as the other public blockchain, but in a different way. We're not trying to hide it. So it also has horizontal scaling in this blockchain. So each dApp has its own blockchain running on its own hardware. If you want to have that kind of capabilities, you can also have like a cheaper plans that is shared. But it basically, you as an application developer decides. I will go through a little bit on our consensus model fast, but it's basically PBFT at the basis, and then layers of staking and anchoring. We have a new language I will show some. Great performance, and also it's a great user interface, because the application developer can make an application where the users do not need to hold tokens. If you want to launch a game that's played by people across the world, it's kind of hard to tell them, first go to an exchange and buy my token, and then you can play the game. This way you can make your own token system if you want, or no token system at all in your application, and have as easy onboarding as in a normal application. So I call it very important applications. The dApps are first-class citizens, and they decide on the blockchain, on the number of nodes, etc. Its own monetization structure. And the application developer or the application pays for the hosting. So there's no payment for each transaction, like in Ethereum. And at the core, we have a decentralized application running on several nodes, and we require qualified majority. There's a formula how many nodes you need to have to accept a transaction, and you have like a full inspection of how voting is done. So if this is a reputable company, reputable organization, you can see probably how they vote, etc. And if you add more than 3, of course you should have more than 3, but a larger number, you get a more resilient blockchain. Also, that's anchored into another level of blockchain, the Chromapolis blockchain, and that in its turn is anchored into the public blockchains, just as an extra security. If everything goes back, you can have evidence of the state of affairs before the bomb hit all the data centers at the same time, etc. Yeah, I've mentioned gaming. I will do a little example of a game that Ricardo showed us earlier today. But you can have the difference between this and a lot of other blockchain gaming platforms. This is not only about NFTs, but it's about having the complete game logic, the complete engine inside the blockchain. Because whatever happens with your NFTs, if the developer removes the app from the app store and shuts down the service, you will have like a bunch of binary things, not the pretty cat you thought you had. So it's important, if you want to really preserve your assets, that you have control over the application as well, that it cannot be turned down. Yeah, of course, why do we need Chroma tokens? To pay for hosting. That's at the core. And there's some convenience features of Chrome as well. But your application does not need to have tokens from the users. You will probably implement your own tokens. It doesn't need to have the Chroma token in order to use an application. And I will try to do a demo. So maybe someone can hold the mic for my team. Yes, I should pay someone. I'll take the man himself that did the demo. He can even help me. So Ricardo, this morning, Ricardo was doing yeah, hands-on workshop with developers. It's really great. I'm going to use this demo now.
I got promoted, basically.
Yeah. This is the first years at Chroma where you get this kind of responsibilities. Yes, I have a demo running. Kind of easy to set up. But we're coders, right? A few of us. Well, I'm a retired coder, turns you, but let me see. So the game that we implemented is tic-tac-toe, in order to have something that we can show that the game logic is on the blockchain, but still be a small example that we can do in a workshop around. So it's this is our hot-looking IDE, and the code is in this window here. It is around 140 lines to implement tic-tac-toe completely. Oh, no. So yeah. So we have a class hero player that basically translates into a table in a database. You have cells on the board. You have a table that you're playing on. It has some properties around whose turn it is. It has the cells and the state of the cells. You have a table of players, where they are. And here's how to code things. Create player. You basically connect from the client side, put in the name and the public key that you generate on your device. And this line require checks the public key, that it's actually that public key that sent the message to the blockchain. And then it's a single line, create player with name public key. So we measured it to be 6 or 7 times more compact than SQL. It also has other features. It has static typing for security reasons, and yeah, SQL has its quirks, so it's a love and hate relationship for me, kind of. So operations are things that update the state in the blockchain or the database. Is anything interesting to look at here? Yeah, we can take a look at something complex. This is complex thing, is to win. It's actually a read of the database. But you can see it's not only SQL coding, it's also like a normal iterative programming language. You have a for loop. You check if you have 3 consecutive marks for the player. Then you check the vertical, horizontal, and diagonal. Here is the read operations, or the select in SQL. Kind of easy to do joins between different tables in one-liners here. Get player tables. It reads this table player at table and selects based on the public key of the player, and it sorts on the name and the state and whose term. So you have a deterministic order of sorting. This is one rather. It's one line, but very broad. But you can do kind of complex things. It would definitely be 10 lines in SQL. And here's a client actually running this that we started. tic-tac-toe. Yes.
Like the user is not here.
Maybe he's here. The other browser. Can I join? Let's try to join. See what happens. The other player's turn. So we have the demo code for this if you want to run it. And you said how long time did it take to take the backend versus the front end to this project?
Like the red part took me like 3 hours to match weighted, and the whole application actually took us like a week to develop the front end.
That's the guy carrying his microphones. So anyone can do this, like anyone that. I mean, we can see if we can play a little bit. Yeah, now the other guy can play. It's my turn. Go back to the other browser. It's your turn. It's a great strategy, etc. You know how to play tic-tac-toe. Take the middle one. Something a little bit more interesting, maybe. Sorry, Ricardo, but we have a social network also somewhere. Just show the code for the chat. It's really nice. And now, maybe time for questions. Let's skip the chat. But yeah. Someone. Yes.
How many active nodes do you have right now?
We have no active nodes because we are launching something with providers soon, right? We have some onboarded providers, so we'll set up this summer. But of course, right at the start, we will have a kind of a central role here, but that's like a bootstrapping phase. Of course, we want to have a lot of providers that will control the network, otherwise it makes no sense.
How many?
There's actually no upper limit on the number of different providers. It's more that we can have at the start some decent quality of the operators, not your game rig in your basement probably. Maybe a few of those too, but also some reputable companies where you can actually host a serious application.
So what's the incentive to run a Chromia node? Am I getting inflation funding or developer stake, right, to build their DApp, to access the services, right? What do I earn to run a node?
As a private individual, you don't earn. You cannot set up a node. You can set up a read-only node. That's basically what you can do. As a provider, it's basically like cloud hosting. So they get tokens for doing these operations, and there's a marketplace and a price. So in the long term, something similar to cloud hosting. We will have a marketplace, so you can choose the nodes, but there will also be some free or very cheap nodes where if you just have something to try out, etc., to run your applications. But if you want like specific performance and stuff like that, you should probably select some good providers to run your application. Yes, of course. So that's the idea. You can have a provider in the US, you can have one in China, one in Russia, one in Sweden, etc. So even if regulations change or whatever, you're kind of protected from because it's about majority vote. Yeah.
Any more questions?
No.
Anyone in my team that wants to answer things in a better way than I do? No complaints.
Any last remarks, Henrik?
Sorry?
Any last remarks from your side?
No. Please, we have the documentation out and some samples, and of course we're interested in application developers ready to sponsor early dApps. So when you become frustrated with current technologies, you can come to us. And yeah, we have some swag. Please bring that.